Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Rodan. And today, as you can see, I'm still continuing my Disney movie marathon by, of course, talking about the movies or anything else, like the merchandising, theme parks, or whatever else as related to the company. So here we are. So I just figured I'd just do another thing when it comes to the Disney princesses. Yes, I'm still talking about them, so what? I actually do like these characters, so this is my way, of course, to defend them because again, we have these angry feminists, for at least not every feminist, of course, just women in general, I guess, to be more specific, I guess, that who's of course screaming sexism because of the higher ups, men get paid more and whatnot, and having men telling them what to do with their bodies or whatever. I don't see what this has to do with Disney exactly, but okay. But basically, long story short, just screaming sexism just because of the princesses, which in retrospect makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Because when you think about it, a princess and a queen are they do have the higher ups in the government. You realize that, right? So which means they do in fact have political power. They are in fact in charge of a nation, of a country, of a kingdom. So when you think about it, they're the exact opposite of what they're claiming. They want women to be in charge, but how can you be saying that they want women in charge when these characters are already in charge? They're basically bossing people around. Granted, a princess may not have uh, as much political power influence as a queen would, but it still counts in some ways when you think about it. So this whole notion that oh, this sex is sex is sex. How dare you? How dare men? Makes absolutely no sense. It never did to begin with, honestly, really. But still, I'm basically responding to this individual when it comes to the political or maybe, well, at the very least, just the positive, have positive female roles in animation and whatnot. Of course, this is a jab towards the Disney princesses. It's either that or just I'm just an angry old bastard here, folks. Just complain about everything. What? I'm over 100 years old. Of course, I'm be a big grumpy here because I've seen so much stupid shit. But yeah, folks, I'm just trying to give you, I guess, a rough summary about what's going to happen here, just to give an idea, of course, just right before we get into it, obviously. And yes, like I said a moment ago, I won't up to it. I do like these princess movies. I know it's not something for men to like, but I don't care. And this is my YouTube channel, and I do whatever I want with it. I talk about whatever anytime I wish. That's one of the reasons as to why I'm doing these Disney movie-a-thons and whatnot. And I had to slip in the princesses at some point, which I've often done. So I have no Disney princess movies to review at the moment until later, I guess. And yeah, I guess up until then, I have to sneak these types of characters into these these marathons somehow, I guess, in one way or another. So there was that, I suppose. This is going to be a fairly lengthy video, so thank you anybody for watching ahead of time. And yeah, whoever actually watched this straight through, I highly appreciate it because yes, I do realize these videos can be pretty lengthy. Not always, but for the most part, they are. But anyway, if it comes to these princess characters, they are not sexist. You can't change my mind. And just because these movies, the original princess films, were produced in a particular time period does not mean the films themselves were sexist at the time. I mean, society has changed, and so did the princess movies. The new era of princess movies, yes, have changed too. But again, that doesn't mean the old princess movies like Cinderella and the others, that doesn't mean they're sexist. Oh boy, here we go, folks.
Recently, in my English literature class, an interesting discussion came about pertaining to Disney animated films, more specifically, princess animated films. My teacher had said something that profoundly changed my initial view of these movies. She had said, Disney princess movies are not works of art. I've always
Well, right off the bat, that's a complete lie because there's thousands and thousands of fans who do appreciate these films for what they are and not for what they are not. So it just seems like somebody's twisting your own opinion around for their own sake of it, because the original Cinderella is often considered as a masterpiece. And yeah, so you tell me that doesn't count just because a lot of men said so? Is that what it is? And also, the animated film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was often considered as one of the greatest films of all time. So again, you just proven that you're wrong. And yes, there's been women who worked on these films as well. On top of that, so even the Alice in Wonderland, the original one. Yes, I'm bringing this one up too because the movie Alice herself was originally considered as a princess. Not anymore, but still. And that's often considered as a classic, even though it got caught following after a while. But it just seems that it bothers this individual that these princess movies are held up in such high regard, which seems awfully pity when you think about it, because it is. Okay, a lot of people put them on a pedestal. So what? They are really enjoyable films after all. So give me a break here. This is it's already starting off bad. Case in point, like for an example here, folks. It's like me getting mad at the Godfather trilogy or even the Batman trilogy, and yes, even the Gamma trilogy, just because they've been held in high regard. How childish do you have to be? Come on.
I've always been more of a Star Wars fan. Princesses are weak and portray a wrongful image of females.
Again, that's completely lying. Because, like I just mentioned a moment ago, princesses help to run the country, which means they will help the government, which means they have a high position of authority, which a lot of women seem to like, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So that contradicts your statement right there. That's the main role of a princess, is to help run a country. Oh boy.
To that point, another classmate had pointed out, what about Mulan?
Well, I can see where this is going. It goes into what I just said before. Just because the newer princess films are somewhat different compared to the older princess movies, like I just said a moment ago, that does not mean the old princess movies are sexist. Yes, they were made in a different time period in America. That is true, like I just said. But also, that doesn't mean they were sexist either. Of course, rules change. But still.
Warrior and badass. My teacher had rolled her eyes then. She then retorted back, Mulan was one of the worst. Think about
Okay, let's take a stab at this movie. Why? I don't know. How? It's not that bad. Oh yeah, this is the worst one. It's just because she's drag king. That's a technical term, by the way. When a woman changes into the outfits of the other gender, she's technically called a drag king. Okay, so what? Big deal. How about mind your business? How about that? Is it because I know she's Asian, but come on. And oh yeah, speaking of an Asian character, a lot of people seem to believe that Walt Disney was anti-Semitic, which in itself is a lie. What I'm getting at is that E.W. Jackson had often stated that if you don't criticize the Asians for anything, you're anti-American. Of course, he's referring to how the coronavirus has spread all over the place. That's incredibly racist. Nobody's getting on his case for that, which is not surprising because a lot of church people, not all, but quite a few, seem to have a grudge against Asians anyway because they don't celebrate the same God like they do. And matter of fact, a lot of them actually don't. Yeah, they don't. So what? They don't celebrate God. But again, you don't see people calling out these Christians for being hateful towards Asians. And we do have like other type princesses. Look at this character. She's Mexican, and she's a princess. I don't see anyone talking about that. She kind of fell out under the radar, unfortunately. And and of course the individual, just because a female character is a dancer in distress doesn't automatically mean it's sexist. It depends on the context of said situation. But hey, God forbid if a dude risks his life rescuing the princess and using his own resources to do such things and whatnot. Ugh. And of course, yeah, and also never mind the fact that Disney does own the rights to the Star Wars films nowadays, which does feature Princess Leia. helping men and women out. I can say the same thing with Sailor Moon. Those are female lead characters and whatnot. Oh boy. Speaking of which, I need to talk about more about Sailor Moon at some point in the future. I don't know when, but I just reminded myself there.
She had to become a man in order to be accepted.
Oh my god, that's okay. This is so that was cringe. Okay, first of all, just because again the technical term is drag king. Okay, she's a drag king, and there's no shame in that. But my point being is that this is often gets confused with being trans. Is not the same thing. And maybe the dude that she's trained with, well, we all know who we're talking about. Maybe she's into feminine looking men, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Granted, that individual's gender doesn't really matter at the end of the day as long as the individual looks extremely feminine. Maybe that's the thing. I don't. I know some people brought this kind of a thing to the make to that character because that one character could be bisexual. I don't know what relevance does this have to anything really. I have no idea. It just seems like this is one of those podcasts again that's just spitting out random stuff to make it seem like this individual, this lady, has some sort of legit point. I know she's technically talking about some conversation she's had before with a teacher or whoever, and somehow is relevant to the main topic at hand, I guess. But okay, still didn't think Mulan was that bad actually.
Into society, into the army. She had to become a man in order for people to
Ah, Christ Almighty! You don't become. She was not trying to become a man. Uh, Again, drag king. That's the term I just said that. I know she's trying to say that she's trying to use this film right alone that Disney princesses are sexist. How does this explain anything? That doesn't make any sense. You're obviously avoiding the context of the film because she had no choice to do that. I mean, okay, technically you can say she's lying because she's going undercover, sure. But I mean, that's she's only lying because of the fact, not because of sexism or anything, but it's because of the rules at the time in which the story takes place in. It's not because of the company or the genre is sexist. Context. You need context to make that claim, which you're clearly lacking. This is so stupid. So the woman who was making this podcast is intentionally uh misleading to make it out that somehow this is proof that the princess genre is sexist? What are you talking about? This Christ, man, that's not what this movie's trying to do. Yes, she's being rebellious. Yes, she has her own mores. I mean, that's not justifying the fact Mulan had lied, sure, but still, she believed in her own free will to do this. In other words, what I'm saying is that Mulan is doing the right thing in the wrong way, is what I'm getting at. But again, this does not mean the princess movies are sexist at all. Uh, Given the events in this movie, yeah, her dad would have been killed off immediately. And yes, there's been moments where she actually saved her teammates from certain death. Like the one avalanche scene from the film. You've seen the movie before, you know what scene I'm talking about. And there was that one scene in the village where a lot of people were murdered. There was that as well, and whatnot. It's just trying to bring down the movie for what reason? Just because what some teacher didn't like it? Who cares? Oh boy, just okay. Just this is so stupid. Yeah, it's so idiotic. Anyway.
seriously. The whole class had sat in silence then, reflecting and taking in what she had just said. Meanwhile, I felt as if my entire childhood just died right there.
Well, this podcast has this going on for it. This has to be one of the most melodramatic podcasts I've ever heard. And of course, she's gonna have the music in the background, and she looks like she's reading off a poem or whatever. I guess like she's trying to tell a story of something that happened like ages ago. And at least she got something scripted, I guess. Unlike some of the other people I've talked about, I'll give you that. But still wrong. What's going on here? You bored or something? That's what this comes off like. You just trying to go up and just talk about something that's nothing of importance, really. Come on. Yeah, I've heard a lot of complaints about this movie, but at the end of the day, I really don't care. All that really matters is that I enjoy the movie. Yeah, I've heard many complaints, but it's not that flawed of a movie. It's not that terrible. Yeah, I actually quite enjoyed it. I do miss the hand drawn animation, but at the end of the day, it's still a good movie. So what? If people don't like it, no, that's on them. That's their fault. They're missing out on a movie.
Let's just say I was more of a Princess fan than a Star Wars fan.
Okay. You enjoy the princess movies than you did with Star Wars. Whoop de doo. Want me to clap for you? Want me to applaud you for that? What does this have to do with anything? Just, I mean, there's Princess Leia. I guess you would count as a princess nowadays because, like I said earlier, Disney bought the rights, so I guess she'll be in the princess line, I suppose. I'm so bored right now. I'm doing something else, really. This is dumb. I'm already regretting this.
All of a sudden, I doubted the quality of my childhood. The endless hours I had devoted to
Ah, Christ, lady. Oh, my poor childhood. Oh no, it's been all. Shut up. Ah, Christ.
watching these movies suddenly felt wasted. It's true, I thought to myself. Mulan had to disguise herself as a man in order to fit into society. Only a man could take the place of her weak grandpa in the war. Cinderella had to wait for a man to take away.
Ah, Christ. Here we go again. You're skipping the context of the movie. When did she ever wait for a man? When did this ever happen? She was technically a housemaid. Yes, that was an actual job position, by the way. And the thing is, if anybody was actually toxic, it was her stepmother and step siblings. Yes, women. Three women, in fact. Yeah, she was the villain of the story, along with her daughters. And yeah, they were not the nicest people at all. Funny how you don't bring that up. But only men do that, right? Only men, right? Yes, this does exist. Whether you want to accept this or not, but this does exist. And case in point, look what happened with Will Smith. You know what I'm talking about with the Oscars and Chris Rock. I believe the wife, Jade is what her name is, right? She's extremely toxic, and you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to change my mind here. I really believe that she really is extremely toxic. Yeah, deal with it. And don't get me wrong. Even if you found Chris Rock's joke, tasteless, okay, fine. Words do have consequences. I'm not dismissing that.
Her pitiful situations, and only her prince gave her happiness and a fulfilling life. Sleeping Beauty had to wait for a man to lift her curse. True love's kiss is what they say it was. And Ariel, my favorite princess of all time, gave up her legs for a man.
Ah, Christ, lady. Again, she's skipping out on the context as a way to mislead you, intentionally. Just, lying. And while I never liked The Little Mermaid, if I be honest with you, I didn't think it was that good of a movie. I thought it was overrated, if you ask me. I mean, the movie's okay, I guess. It's alright. But I thought it was kind of leaning on the bad side, bad movie side. But anyway, point being is that Ariel never experienced dating before. So, of course, this will be her first time actually dating. Okay, if you want to call it that. So, of course, she's going to make some rash decisions, which she ultimately does in the film, where she gives up her voice for legs. Because she's under the impression that if she does this grand gesture, that in itself is somehow going to win him over. This has nothing to do with sexism whatsoever. This just more in light of the fact that she just wants to impress him and thinks doing this one thing for him is enough to impress him. Therefore, she and him will get a relationship, a romantic relationship. Of course, it's not that easy. Realistic speaking, not that it doesn't work like that, like at all. And speaking of sexism, the Bible itself is littered with sexism. It's all over the place. It's really sexist. So yeah, I find it odd that when they come to these people who want to boycott the princess characters and whatnot, never really looked up these kinds of stuff. If anything, they completely avoid it. Was Ariel really stupid for doing that? Absolutely. She really does a really stupid thing in this regard. And just because the female character did something stupid does not mean the movie itself is sexist. I mean, when I say that, it's because of the bad writing. I'm not saying she was intentionally dumb by any means. No, it was just more in line with bad writing. I know we were supposed to cheer for her and whatnot and hope things get better, of course. And I know what they were trying to do. It's just a piss poor attempt to make a princess character be really active, I guess, in her life in some sort of way. And but ultimately, she's skipping on the whole idea where she's trying to make sure that the dude, Eric, if I remember his name correctly, falls in love with him because she can't talk yet, but she's supposed to impress him in some sort of manner and go along with him. Just because I know I mentioned this in a separate video when I was talking about another Disney princess, but I couldn't use this as a criticism towards the film. Where I mean, I get what they were trying to do, but just because the characters go through this grand adventure, it doesn't mean they're going to fall in love. This movie seems to think that just because of that, it's going to equal to love. Not necessarily. But again, what I'm saying is that the woman who's doing this podcast is skipping on the intent. She's okay. What's the idea? What's the meaning behind certain scenes and whatnot? She's not going on what the movie is saying. She's only going on what she thinks the movie is saying. And yes, there is a complete difference. Oh boy, come on. So what I'm getting at is that this lady who's doing the podcast, she's intentionally misleading the argument so it can make it as if that she has some sort of legit point just to attack men, which in itself, yes, can be just as bigoted. Come on.
A man was enough for her to abandon her family and her past life.
No. The film The Little Mermaid was not implying that having a man in her life it meant that she should abandon her family, she should abandon her kingdom, she should abandon all responsibilities. Where are you getting this from? If she was a lesbian, just go along with me here, folks. I'm pretty sure people like you would have just ultimately said something in the lines of,
Won't somebody please think of the children?
point being, when these princess movies do become a bit more progressive in a certain way, people would have still complained nonetheless. Anyway, oh boy, just it just seems odd to me, folks. Just no, these movies are not sexist. None of them are. I'm sticking by that too.
All of the movies I had cherished were just reiterations of damsel in distress types of situations, and I was
Again, that's a complete lie. It depends on the context. Dancer in distress isn't in itself a bad thing. It depends how it's done. If anything, it's just incredibly lazy writing. When you think about it, it's overdone, sure, but still. Not that I'm trying to suggest that any of these characters are dancers in distress, which none of them were, like at all. And Mario 64 had done this kind of a thing, and it already got old and tired by the time this was released. I don't see her bring this game up whatsoever. Oh boy, just give me a break here.
ashamed of myself for looking up to them for so long.
They can still be positive role models, lady. So what are you talking about? Ugh.
I was at a quarter-life crisis at this point. The childhood I had spent worshipping my idols had shattered right before me. The sort of shame and disgust and disappointment shed upon these movies caused me to second guess the quality of my childhood. Princess movies are insensitive to race, femininity, equal opportunity, instead choosing to support male dominance and damsel in distress-esque situations.
Oh, please, lady. Again, this is a form of manipulation. She's trying to manipulate you into thinking that you're in the wrong for disagreeing with her. How about going to Nigeria? Yeah, really, right now go to Nigeria. Let's see how you would experience an actual real life crisis. Not this bullshit you're talking about.
It seems like the whole world, more specifically the Disney franchise, caught that drift in 2009 with the release of The Princess and the Frog. Since then, they have continued to release more progressive films such as Brave and Frozen.
Again, okay, this is like the third time I've mentioned this in this video. Just because the more newer films like Tangled, Frozen 1 and 2, and yes, even Moana, are different in some ways compared to the earlier films, that doesn't mean that the earlier films are sexist. And again, I know she was trying to give a compliment, of course, but I don't believe that's genuine because that's a form of gaslighting. There's actual problems in the world, like even right now in Nigeria, for crying out loud. There's a lot of places that, not all of it, but in places over there that's really poor. I mean, really poor. And there's terrorist organizations over there as well. So you can get out of here with this small little crisis, you can call that. You're just being overly dramatic. That's all you are. And yes, this is an area where, yes, girls have been kidnapped, murdered, among other things. I'm not going to say what this in the video, but you can use your imagination for the rest of that to do very specific things, if you catch my drift. And they just do it anyway. They're trying to justify it on their own, specifically little girls. And it doesn't take a rocket science to put two and together to know what I'm talking about here. So yeah, if you want to talk about how someone grew up doing something really brutal, here you go. This is the kind of thing what I'm talking about. So, but you're just being really, really, really melodramatic just because some teacher at some point fed you a lie and you believed it. You were stupid enough to continue to believe it. It's not that Disney's fault that you won't accept reality. It's your own fault. It's you. You should be at an age to figure out some things out on your own.
And although I do support these increasingly progressive movies and the message they're trying to send out, there's something that still got me so invested in the movies of the past. Sleeping Beauty, The Little Mermaid, Snow White, Mulan, Cinderella continue to hold a special place in my heart, and the discussion in my English class has partly turned my perception of them quite sour. After much contemplation, I thought, but what if society today has got the picture wrong? What if princesses are really the kick-ass women they're supposed to be? I read an article on crack.com by an editor there named Christy Harrison about how Disney princesses created modern feminism. She had said, "Let's play a game. Mentally strip the Disney princesses of their tiaras and poofy gowns. Now what makes Snow White different from Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, Frodo Baggins, or Jack from Adam Sandler's Jack and Jill? Or Jack from Lost?"
Oh, Jesus. Do we have to go to this rabbit hole? There's going to be a lot to explain there. Oh.
Either Jack works equally well in this scenario. The important thing is, just because we're talking about princesses doesn't mean we're not following the well-worn hero's journey that we take for granted when we're talking about Harry and Luke. She continues, yes.
Oh, lady, you're still full of shit because she's trying to give you the illusion that, oh, I'm not attacking you men, just the sexist men. Of course, not all men are like this. This, again, just seems like gaslighting. When it comes to good Luke Skywalker or any other male character, of course, they have their own journeys. Of course, they have their own struggles. Again, to go into real depth into this, real detail, this is going to take forever. This video is already long enough as it is. Give me a break here. I don't want to go into detail into that. Point, since she brought up Luke Skywalker, let's go to the original Star Wars trilogy for a brief moment here. Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and of course with Princess Leia, they have their own journey to go through. They have their own personal struggles, each individual one. And there could be interconnecting, of course, like, for example, Princess Leia at the time in the original trilogy and Han Solo, they hated each other at first. But eventually, there was a relationship that was formed, which happens in real life.
Their waists are way too tiny, their eyes are weirdly huge.
Again, another stupid statement. She's under the impression that if someone looks feminine, that's automatically a weakness, which in itself is a lie. Just because you're feminine looking or behave feminine in any kind of shape or form, I guess, that alone does not mean the individual is weak. You can still be headstrong and feminine. There's more than one way to express this idea. Why does everything when it comes to women has to be expressed in one specific kind of a way? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Being feminine in any shape or form, in any kind of way, in any kind of story, does not equal to sexism. Just because these princess characters express that kind of feminine looking behavior in any shape or form, that in itself does not mean it's sexist. And she's trying to really hammer the idea that all Disney films are sexist. When it comes to princess stuff, that's a lie. But yes, of course, Frozen is different compared to the earlier stuff, like I was saying before. And yes, you can even say Frozen 2 is drastically different in some ways, and that's perfectly fine. And also, even yes, like Moana was mentioned, that's different, sure. Or even movies like this and Tangled. And yes, I really did enjoy those movies. But however, do I want to see like bunch of Disney princess movies the exact same way? No, have some variety, will you? Again, I bring up the sexism that's clearly in the Bible. And you're just going to hear me from this point forward because you just beat your head that the original Disney princess movies are incredibly sexist, and nowadays the newer stuff, the new era, is just to reinform that, which in itself is a lie. Again, this is like the fourth time I've said this. Just because the newer era is different in some ways, doesn't mean that the older stuff is sexist. That's a complete lie. People like her really fail to realize that, okay, the silent generation enjoyed their movies, the boomer generation enjoyed their movies, Gen X enjoy their enjoy their movies, and then compare that to the boomer generation. What happens here, tastes in movies change. That in itself doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I know that's funny coming from me because I'm always enjoying the more obscure horror films, which yes, I still do. But at least I'm going to give the newer stuff a chance while not dismissing the older stuff. But again, she can't seem to grasp the idea that taste in movies change. Taste in movies change. Taste in movies change. And again, taste in movies change. She does not seem to recognize that whatsoever. She just keeps going on beat her head that the older stuff is sexist. And she, of course, to give her a point of validation, she has like a guest on for like a brief moment to claim that the original Princess movies are too different from the newer stuff, and somehow just the fact that it's older means it's sexist, which is not. Oh, great, now I'm repeating myself. Christ.
I had also interviewed a film teacher in my school to include another perspective about this topic. I had started off asking her what her point of view of Disney animated princess movies were, and to that point she had said,
I wouldn't say that we don't appreciate those two-dimensional visuals anymore. As far as the characters depicted in those stories, those have also come a long way. You know, if you think about Sleeping Beauty, if you think about Snow White and Cinderella, some of my favorite being Cinderella, you know, and then you look at Vanellope from Wreck-It Ralph, and you say, wow, you know, Vanellope is, for the modern age, she is that voice that needs to be heard and her story to be told just as much as Cinderella, but for the upcoming generation. And so the animation has to change with the times too, and Vanellope then looks, you know, a little bit more rugged and ragged with the candy in her hair and kind of punk-like, and again, like we value the classics of Cinderella, but Cinderella like that wouldn't be able to survive today, in my opinion, right? Just like Vanellope would have been way ahead of her time and kind of oddly placed in a two-dimensional Disney film. Mm-hmm. So I just think just that idea of the evolution of animation and the art of animation really just brings together those storylines and helps them to be more complex today. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's compare Aladdin to another film that came out in the 90s as well. This comes off different from this. Does that mean both films are bad? No, of course not. Again, just trying to beat you over the head with the fact looking feminine and whatnot and behaving in a feminine manner somehow is bad. But that's a lie. And the thing is, this can actually be pretty attractive for some people. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, like whatsoever. Acting all girly and feminine and all that stuff. Yeah, so acting all womanly regardless of the individual's gender. Yes, so some people will actually find that attractive. So yeah, there can be some romance involved somehow in that matter. Regardless of some individuals and sexuality as well. And I'm bringing this to talk about, this movie. She acted really feminine, and that's okay. So what? And compared to that, yeah, no, no, thank you. I mean, no offense or anything, but no, 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 not for me though. I mean, if somebody likes that, that's fine. But point being, there's more than one way to express a woman. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that either. But again, Bible. Look at the Bible. There's lots of moments in this, in these stories that's incredibly sexist, folks. And but like I said, it's around uh, just end it here, I guess, because the individual, this lady who made this podcast, just keeps pretty much for the entire thing, just regurgitating the same thing over and over and over and over and over. It's like a dog chasing his own tail, so to speak. The old Disney princesses movies are bad because they're sexist, and she's trying to base this off of the fact that they were made at a certain period of time, which yes, they were, where women couldn't really have rights as many like they do now. Well, while that is true, they didn't at the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean the films themselves were sexist. Ugh, Christ, people. But yeah, again, just that was pretty much her entire podcast, really that, and just trying to beat you over the head repeatedly. All right, folks. Like I said, I think this video's gone long enough, so I do appreciate anyone watching this. But moreover, yes, basically, long story short, I'm defending the Disney princesses movies again and again and again. And yes, when it comes to the sexualization, like we were saying earlier, which was briefly, really, really briefly brought up. But yes, the princess look a certain way. So what? Big deal. Like they're really thin. It's what you call a character design. Every studio has a trademark character design. That does not have to be such an evil, malicious thing. That's not. It's fine if they have their own style, of course. Oh yeah, I guess that's the kind of the point of what I'm trying to get at, folks, is that this argument here is so sloppily put together, you can easily debunk it without much effort, really. But yeah, all right, folks, that'll be it for now. And I do appreciate anyone that actually, sat through all of this. Whoever you are, and you watched this entire damn video, I highly appreciate it. I thank you, whoever you actually sat through this. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and take care. Until next time, see ya. Oh yeah.